What's good, family? Welcome to another episode of the MySpace Effect, Building Influence and Impact. I'm your host, Herschel M. Thank you for joining me for another episode tonight. I really want to deal with a topic that has really been plaguing me over the last few weeks. I was kind of careful in dealing with it because it hit home for me. I ain't gonna lie. But at the same token, I believe it's something that really needs to be talked about, especially from a leadership capacity. On this podcast, this platform, it's fair game. I'm not going to be trying to give stuff a pass just because it may hit home or have hit home. But tonight I want to talk about emotionally stuck men. We have a lot of men around here in this generation that has, I like going to the gym, so I think about analogy of grown man shoulders, yet at the same token have a lot of little boy wounds. And so I want to deal with some things tonight that most people won't talk about from a upward fashion, rejection, abandonment, narcissism, and one particular thing that really can be a huge catalyst for so much is that fatherly wound. I think this is going to be good. So y'all know what time it is. Let's get it.
Back, relax, enjoy the music, and welcome to my space.
Welcome to my space. You did not have to come by, but you can.
When boys become men, emotionally stuck men, this mature conversation I had really, it kind of influenced and sparked this episode because it's something that men and women are wrestling with quietly. I've lived this myself as well. I've seen where rejection, abandonment, and expectation can distort your identity until you don't realize you're functioning from a wound and not wisdom. Ultimately, this is what has really pushed me to want to talk about this as a whole. We have to deal with these things. And really, it starts out with that thing called the hidden boy. The hidden boy. Men age chronologically, but they don't always grow emotionally. And sometimes that trauma coupled with silence can create that freezing point. One thing about men is that we internalize things differently than women. And just because one can be strong don't always mean they're connected. You can be strong but disconnected. The catalyst of that crisis can be fatherlessness. If a boy never gets affirmed, the man will always seek validation. Affirmation is important. Even when you look at Proverbs 4, chapter 4:23, it talks about guard your heart. Not from emotions per se, but more so malfunctioning identity. From abandonment to perfectionism to this narcissistic armor. And this is important. This is important that I keep it in a general context because while people have gone through things, everybody experiences different. There may be great similarities, so similar to the point it's just like, that's exactly what I dealt with. However, their personal experience is always unique, always unique. And so I really want to talk about the stages of how one can get from abandonment to perfectionism to this narcissistic armor. Even when you look at the cycle and start with abandonment, typically that comes from an absentee father or inconsistent affirmation, and in many cases, emotional neglect. You look at the cycle of rejection. Sometimes it starts with early friendships from parents, from women, and what I've witnessed greatly from church. Perfectionism is something I've battled with in life too, which is if I do everything right, nobody will leave. Nobody will leave. That can work as a child, but it will destroy you as an adult. Trust me, it will. Oh my goodness, it will. And see, sometimes when that happens, that's how one can really gravitate to that narcissism, because rejection and abandonment are gateways to narcissism or perfectionism. And it's not necessarily more so pride than it is protection. It's that wounded child dressing up as confidence. And I've dealt with people like that. And when you start tinkering with that armor and cracking it, oh man, you bring out the worst. It can, because ultimately narcissism is often just a scared boy hiding behind a strong man's mask. It's typically what it is. And when you start chipping away at that, Oh man, I didn't got the ugly out of people. Now, obviously, this can apply to women too, but I'm dealing with men and the trying to give understanding of how one can be emotionally stuck across the board. And it matters because it plays a huge role into relationships. When you have emotionally stuck men, you're going to have broken relationships. Some men was never taught emotional language growing up. Emotional intelligence, how to really navigate through things emotionally. No, they weren't taught that. Now I'm giving again understanding, a general understanding, because I want this to help somebody where they are, at least give them a path, a way of navigation of like, okay, that makes sense. You have a lot of silent men, they create loud problems because if they don't know how to really articulate their emotions, oh man. So sometimes they either shut down or they blow up. You can have one or the other. That'll put you in a category of emotional entitlement versus emotional responsibility. And this gives understanding to why sometimes uh, the issues in being in a relationship with men that are emotionally stuck can take place because you have all of these things. And ultimately, if you get with somebody that's emotionally stuck, one, women may not feel safe. And then number two, a lot of men gonna feel misunderstood. So you have a great clashing. And yes, while men should be able to lead and different things like that, if they don't have their stuff together, some don't because they don't know, which is why I'm sharing this. Some are indifferent. You got ignorance, I don't know, and then you have indifference, I don't care. Some have a combination of both. I don't care, I don't know. And see what's so damaging is when a man's emotion has no vocabulary, he creates conflict he cannot explain. And ultimately, that can lead to a great level of abuse and much more. But I'm gonna leave that's another conversation for another time. But even in that, let me say this, even in that, with those issues at hand like that, it really can cause masculinity to be misdiagnosed. As I shared before about how they never taught emotional language. Some men are taught to be strong but not whole. And as I shared before in previous podcasts, wholeness is really integrity, the ability to maintain a certain temperature across the board. Now, in this case, I'm talking about emotions. You know, as I've shared before, some men are temperatures, some men are thermostats. When you're a thermostat, you can make sure that the temperature across, I can't stand when people say temperature. Sure. Temperature, please. But you have the ability, and that comes with great vocabulary, emotional intelligence. And sometimes masculinity, when it's distorted by trauma, oh man, it creates hell on earth. Even then, if one does have emotional intelligence, because of the damage, one could look at that as weakness. And so what we do is we'll create this pride and ego as a coping mechanism. Underneath that layer of pride and ego is shame. Shame is the foundation of unhealthy masculinity. Even if you look at it from a spiritual capacity, the Bible talks about, I believe in Proverbs chapter 16, verses 18, it says that pride leads to collapse, not strength. Well, ultimately, in practical terms, pride is the mask, but insecurity is the root. And that is why one of the challenges in all of this is vulnerability. I tell people often, vulnerability is a two-way road between somebody being helped and harmed. Many people have used vulnerability as a weapon. It has really caused people to be paralyzed emotionally, stuck. Vulnerability threatens ego, but even in that threat, it frees identity. And the real strength in the midst of all of that is confrontation of self, looking in the mirror. It takes a lot of courage to look in the mirror and accept some things. A lot of men avoid vulnerability because of the pain of that. It don't feel good getting underneath those layers. Some people pride, that wall of pride is so strong, man, especially when people have utilized vulnerability as a weapon. And it don't feel good. I wish I would open up and say something Yeah, I'm open up a can. That's what I'm open up. You feel me? Tell you, man, that stuff rough. It don't always feel good, especially when you've been mishandled and you haven't had a safe space. It can be a struggle too, because vulnerability is the key to creating connection. So if you have two people that are bumping, or you're dealing with an individual that is just refusing, it's going to be difficult to bring about change, because vulnerability is that pathway that creates connection, good or bad. But when it comes to healing, that's vital. Real men bleed privately, but heal publicly. I find myself going through some hard seasons, and boy, you talking about bleeding privately? Good gosh, you talking about like it's like a crime scene, all that blood. I'm bringing humor to this, but I'm telling you, good gosh, you call Olivia Benson, oh SVU, Law and Order, something, organized crime, something, please. You call the cleanup crew. But the healing publicly has been shown and seen, and that's a blessing, because you do not want to be bleeding publicly, because you'll ruin and hurt so many people. And that's why it pays to handle your business and take responsibility for so much. You look in John 20, Jesus revealed his wounds. And the reason why he did, because healing comes through revealing. That's what the Bible talks about, testimony. The Bible says they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of their testimony. It can help free people. Now, I'm not going to turn this into no Bible study, but I know somebody know what I'm talking about. It helped. That's why many people listen to people's podcasts and stuff. They listen to their podcasts and different people's testimony because they want to be free. They want to see, how can I get to where you're going? And sadly, many don't have the right direction. Some just want to be heard. They don't want change. They don't want to be free. I just want attention. I have a victim mentality. That's what I talked about a while ago about emotional entitlement versus emotional responsibility. All of this requires responsibility, but some people can use this vulnerability and much more as a weapon to get what they want, to stay a little boy. It can apply to women too, but I'm dealing with boys, the men. That's what I'm dealing with. And so it's important to understand that, because even in wholeness, it requires exposure. You go to a doctor, you cannot, if you need surgery and something internally needs to be fixed, you got to expose yourself in order to get better, to get whole, to make sure that your body is moving with integrity across the board. So the steps of breaking the cycle and the path to healing is, we got to name that wound. Who hurt me? And what did I pretend didn't hurt me? And then you have to normalize vulnerability with brothers. Now, iron sharpening iron only works if iron is hitting iron. I'm going to make that clear. So you don't need no plastic hitting metal. You're going to tear up something. So just make sure that whoever you talk to as a brother, that they strong. And I'm not talking about like ego. I'm talking about like they're whole. They a man. Because iron sharpens iron. And then ultimately, you have to separate identity from performance and realize that, you know what, I'm not my mistakes. I'm not, at the same token, I'm not my achievements either. It requires security. Being comfortable in your own skin. The stuff that I've been through in life, it has allowed me to understand, if nothing else, my value. That's been my saving grace, understanding my identity, who I am in God, and ultimately my value, which in turn causes naturally for responsibility. That's when boundaries and all this stuff come in. I can talk about it another time. When you're insecure and you really start pushing for approval and attention and you actually get some traction, oh, that can ruin you. That can ruin you. Because now, what I need to work on for? Look what I got. Look what I'm doing. That's why you have to separate your identity from performance. You're not your mistakes. At the same token, you're not your achievements either. But this all starts with rebuilding your trust in God first. A lot of people don't have trust. Trust is the fuel for all things in life. It's your lifeline. Your lifeline. People are pronounced dead because they no longer have life. When that heart stops beating, when you can't get a pulse, it's over. Healing begins with belonging. When you know who you belong to, your identity, everything ultimately as a cheat code, when you understand everything you've been through, is really about your identity, building it, even if it's things that lacked in your generation, your family lineage. It's all about identity. And then sometimes you need to seek actual help, a therapist, some mentorship, spiritual covering. Now that's been jacked. You got to know what that is. Anything that's uncovered loses anointing. When I talk about covering, as I use the analogy or the example of the other episode, just like having a drink, you put a cover on your drink so it don't get contaminated. And when it comes to spiritual covering, that's really what that looks like, to make sure that your life, your calling, what God has placed you here gets maximized, not contaminated. Then accountability circles. You got don't have no echo chamber, and don't be around people that enable you. I've dealt with that a great deal, and boy, you got some people, they are just flat out enabled monsters. Monsters. Good gosh, monsters. See, you don't heal when you hide. You heal when you face what's been hiding in you. So all the men that are watching this and that are going to watch this eventually, I want you to understand that you're not weak. You're not broken beyond repair. You're not less than. You don't have to perform for God. We have a lot of that going on right now. I mean, great performers. You don't have to keep wearing a mask. Some people, they mask misery and paint pain. That's what their performance look like. But ultimately, you can change your story. And to the women, understand this, and me sharing this, that men don't heal under pressure. They heal under patience. I've been in a situation where I've been wounded. I got around the individual. It would probably worked out if they was patient and was okay with being a friend while I worked through some serious trauma. But for me to go through about losing my life in a particular situation to, you got to hurry and get over it. You ought to be like, what? Have you no empathy? It's something else. It is. It can be brutal and that can hurt men. But at the same token, you don't need to mother them either. Yeah. But don't abandon him. You have to see the man, not just the wound. Yeah. And this helped men too. Men need to see this. When a woman, she can't see you for who you are, you need to run. She don't have no patience, run. She don't have no empathy, run. I talked about my divorce and broken covenant and stuff in previous episodes, but I'm gonna tell you something. The lack of empathy, oh man, that destroyed my relationship. I mean, callous. Didn't have no patience. And I'm saying that because I'm talking about the value of that. You got to have patience. You cannot create this pressure. Man, you can't do that. Because I see it. You can create some ugly situations if you have a man that's not mature and don't know anything else, but like, this is not who I am, and have a way to retreat. You have some men, they'll wake up one morning and you be like Michael Myers. I'm telling you, Freddy Krueger. Tell you, man. That's why I say often that if emotions don't have no sense of direction, if they're not guided to God so he can govern them. In the Bible, when Cain killed Abel, many don't know, and I'm going to try not to be graphic, him killing him was very bad. I won't go into the severity because most don't talk about the severity of it, but the principle or the lesson from it, it shows what emotions can do if they're not checked. I'm saying all of that because as women, you need to understand the process of, I don't like to use this word, but unlearning things. I say correcting things, but some say I have to unlearn. You have to understand that process and give the grace to this man that you want for yourself. You got to set the tone because a lot of women don't understand that energy you put out, you're going to get back. Reaping and sowing is a promise. I got to hurry and get done. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of time. It's a promise. Now, some understand that some will respond, some won't. But at the end of the day, it comes down to character. Who are you? Who are you choosing to be? A person of empathy, patience, or is it conditional? So if you have conditions, you still ain't got it. But I'm going to leave that alone. I can talk about that another time. But this is stuff that women should understand and men should have understanding of too regarding women. So you know, be like, no, that ain't it. Okay, this is it. You got to know, you got to be able to see. Perspective is everything. Before I wrap this up, I want to speak again directly to the men who's been carrying something by himself for too long. I want to remind you that you're not weak for feeling, and you're not broken because you're healing. What you've been through doesn't necessarily define you, but what you decide to confront going forward will shape you. Every woman, I just mentioned earlier, but every woman that's watching this or listening, I want to thank you for being a safe space. And I want to thank you for understanding. I want to thank you for praying. I want to thank you for standing in the gap for men who may not yet have the language for their pain. Some good women out there. I'll tell you, some good women out there. I'm going to tell you that right now. I want to say thank you personally as a man. The cycle ends when you choose awareness over ego, vulnerability over performance, identity over approval, and healing over hiding. That's when, and that is when, only when boys become men. And that's when men become leaders. This is how you can cause a seismic shift in families. You can cause a community to be transformed, and then we start moving into legacy. So if this episode spoke to you, share it with a brother, share it with a friend, share it with a son, share it with a leader, somebody who needs to hear this. And if you haven't already subscribed, please like, follow, subscribe, share, particularly my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get my podcast going on Apple and Spotify and stuff. I'll be moving like a turtle with that. I know I'm going to get fussed at, and that's okay. But I'm going to get there. But please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I think the videos on Facebook delete ultimately when I do lives on there. So be sure to check me out on YouTube. I think everything is in the description box. And I have other things coming up too. But yeah, please subscribe. As always, stay sharp, stay grounded, stay accountable, and keep becoming everything God has called you to be. Again, this is the MySpace Effect. I'm Herschel Peters. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I'll see you on the next one. Y'all take it easy. Peace.